Okay, welcome everybody. Tampa Bay Developer Podcast. Today we have Sean Demartino. He is the president of Central and North Florida for Coastal Construction. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. So what exactly is your role? President of Central and North Florida. What does that mean? You're in charge of all the construction projects in that area of Florida for Coastal?
Yeah, I have the privilege and the opportunity to help lead Coastal in this market. So our geography here would be centralized in Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, could go down through Sarasota and even over to Orlando and beyond in terms of Central Florida. But certainly our focus and our headquarters is here in Tampa. So we've got about 85 to 90 folks currently in our business working on the projects that we have here in the market. And
Amazing.
Yeah, I get to help make sure that we secure that work and execute it well and help our people do the best they can every day.
Well, so far so good because you have built some incredible projects. Just to name a few, at Water Street, you have the JW Marriott, the Heron, 1001 Water Street, which is the office building in Water Street where Boulan is, Arts and Entertainment Residences right next to the Strauss Center, the Ritz Carlton on Bayshore Boulevard with Related Group, the Pendry Art House in St. Pete, and then Aqua at West Shore Yacht Club. Awesome projects. And then, of course, Coastal's Luxury Homes Division. I believe you have a couple on Davis Islands. I've seen some signs for just incredibly intricate residential homes. Very, very high-end, interesting materials that I am born in Tampa. I've never seen residences built like that here before. So it's really cool to have you guys come in and change the architecture of our area in a beautiful way.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's fun to be here in Tampa. I love the community. I love being here, and our teams are really enjoying it as well.
So how did you get into construction? How long have you been in the business for?
Wow, it's hard to imagine. Nearly 30 years, a little more actually. I initially got there when I was at school at University of Florida and needed to do some work, keep myself going up at UF. And so I actually was involved in building a few retail projects in a bar that I was a bartender at. It was helping me pay for college, and just got hooked. I got hooked. I was actually headed towards law school and working on a different front in political science, and switched gears pretty strongly and moved towards the construction management school that exists, the UF Rinker School. And from there, got engaged with a firm when I graduated down in South Florida and began to work on a lot of the Disney projects. So worked in hospitality, entertainment, residential, did a bit of healthcare work over the last 25 years. I've been now with Coastal going on 8 years. Prior to that, I was just with one firm previously. And just really enjoy the large, sophisticated, complex work that kind of brings, I hate to say it this way, but brings dreams to life. There's a lot of stuff that goes with that.
Very Disney of you.
Yeah, very Disney of me. The entertainment side of things is great. When you could drive by and see, I had the opportunity to work on the Avatar Land of Pandora over at Disney. It sounds extravagant, but been involved with well over 20,000 hotel rooms, vacation club product at Disney, both in Florida as well as in Hawaii, the Aulani project for those guys. Those types of projects you get to share with your family and your kids, and a lot of folks, when you get to point to a project and say I was involved from day one and brought that dream to life, it's kind of neat.
That's so cool. So, can you pull up real quick, Tyler, the Avatar Pandora world? Now, was this Coastal or was this previous?
No, this was previous
company?
A different firm.
Got it.
And that was a long journey with a lot of folks working on the original concept all the way through.
Wow.
And again, it's just fun stuff.
Yeah, totally.
You get to imagine floating mountains at Pandora and what it takes to do that with a team of folks that, really are the best in the industry.
How incredible is this? Look at these pictures. Wow. So, man, I would imagine that, having that on your resume certainly helps when you talk about these intricate condominium buildings and these residences and these mixed-use properties. When you start off building something like that, I guess it complements the way you work and run a job. Man, look at that. Wild.
Yeah. Those are all cantilevered steel structures that are, the illusion of those floating, obviously, with brace structure. You can actually walk around inside of those floating mountains, and it's all structural shotcrete concrete and artificial limbs and vines and leaves and everything else to survive the Florida sunlight and the detail that goes with it. So that's an immersive environment. What I love, and part of the reason I joined Coastal, is the advocacy that Coastal brings for our clients, that we push on day one in terms of the vision, the dream, high-end complex work. There's only really a few in our industry that are able to do that and do it extremely well. And the history of the Murphy family and Coastal, coming from an environment where they were down at the Ocean Reef Club building custom homes and having dinner with their owners on a daily basis. The reputation of doing it right and doing it well and doing it so well that your friends and partners with your clients started first with a kind of a custom ownership mentality, and that's grown into since the late 80s has grown into Coastal building and executing some of the most complex tower work in the state by far, and
including Aston Martin Tower, the Porsche Tower, the new Bentley Tower, all down in Miami.
Yes.
These unbelievably intricate designs and car elevators going up 10, 20, 30, 40 more floors. I mean, really intricate, amazing stuff. Stuff that maybe we'll see in Tampa, who knows? This is fantastic on the website as you pan down the beach and you're pointing out each project Coastal Construction has built.
Yeah. It's fun. It really is. And, if you're on a boat driving up and down Sunny Isles or the beach, it's kind of amazing, actually. Just look at the history of that city that's grown up so much in the last 30 to 40 years, and we're part of that fabric. Again, for me with Coastal, being able to do that and be part of working with our clients early on their strategy and getting it right, getting the program right, getting the pricing right, supporting their vision. That's really what is at the heart of the Murphy family culture and what they drive and what we're able to support with our clients. And I think in general, we will find that our clients are normally selecting Coastal because they trust and believe in us, but they also know that we're an advocate for their business vision, that we're working hard towards asking the difficult questions sometimes around, again, programming, level of fit and finish, amenities, everything that's driven into these jobs. So that's what's been really fun for me.
Yeah.
I actually went to school with one of the Murphy brothers, and I always remember his mentality being exactly that. I'm a problem solver, solution provider, an energizer bunny that's going to advocate first. And Tommy, I'm speaking of, he's a frustrated architect and designer, but a builder at heart. And so he brings that energy, and we kind of run with it.
That's amazing. And you went to school with him in college or before that?
Yep.
So where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in New London, Connecticut, but I'm a Floridian. I was here at 9 months old. And
oh, wow.
Grew up here, so I consider myself
You're one of
a
us.
native.
Totally.
Yeah. I grew up in South Florida. Went to high school down there in Hollywood, and then ended up at University of Florida. So, and
Wow.
I've never left, and I never will.
Well, it's funny. So you were at UF. I went to Florida State. And over a summer, I worked a construction job at the Woodlands, Tallahassee, which was a student housing complex. If you're familiar with Tallahassee, behind a Publix where Jameis stole the crab legs. So that was kind of a fun deal.
I was going to bring that up, but you got there.
The man, though, construction in the summer, I remember it was just freaking brutal in Florida. It's a tough job for sure. But you started off in construction at the actual like sweat level. I mean, you were doing management at the time, like foreman stuff, or were you doing swinging the hammer type stuff?
Well, I mean, as I worked in school, I was swinging a hammer and hanging rock and engaged in the in actual work. But once I graduated, I started off with a firm down South Florida, and I was in scheduling and engineering. And moved through the business into senior levels of management on projects and client management, and engaging in, like I mentioned earlier, condos, hospitality, significant hotel projects, Peabody, Hilton, a lot of Ritz work, and then moved into more condominium work and more attractions level work at Disney and beyond. Did a lot of work in the Caribbean as well as over in Hawaii with Disney.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Orlando, never really slowed down, right? Like Tampa had a long period of time where there wasn't a whole lot of development going on. There's a ton going on right now, but Orlando's always had that, the Disney, the Universal Studios, all that tourism pull that's driven development.
Yeah.
A lot of the work, a lot of the labor work, has that slowed down in Orlando? I mean, do you see both of the markets,
Yeah.
Tampa versus Orlando?
Yeah, I do. And you're right. Orlando and Central Florida had the annuity, the consistent annuity of the attractions work, both on the hospitality side, the attractions, then Universal, the beginning of Universal, and now the new park at Universal. Certainly work at University of Central Florida and some work downtown. What it doesn't have is the water. What it doesn't have is the growth that's now been spurned or grew initially out of the investment with Jeff Vinnick and Cascade and Strategic Property Partners that put together the Water Street vision. And we had the opportunity to engage on the front end there. Certainly has made the difference for us to not only plant those seeds, but to grow roots in this market and stay here. And I just see Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Sarasota as a long-term opportunity that's going to continue to grow, not just on the coastal areas, but even in the downtown, in the heart of what's occurring in the resurgence in Tampa.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're going to be a major metropolitan player over the next few decades. It's clear with all the development happening. So you were just talking before we went live about you recently moved to Tampa from Orlando, correct?
Right. Yes.
So at what point in your work with Coastal did they go to you and say, Sean, you got to go to Tampa. We got all these projects. We need you over there on top of the stuff. Or was that more of your decision to move down I-4?
I'd say it was mutual.
Yeah.
Certainly, I do have family in Orlando, but I needed to get my immediate family here locally consistently. The I-4 drive was not bad during COVID, but it's not something I would wish on anybody on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And being here is really fun. I enjoy the Midwestern influence. I enjoy a little bit of a different welcoming attitude that really feels like it's at the heart of Tampa. And that's everywhere. That's business leadership. That's politicians, quite honestly, seem to be very welcoming. Just in general, it's a place to be, and it feels good for families as well as entertainment. I appreciate very much the sports venue. I'm a Lightning fan at the core, and I love that we're a hockey town.
Yeah.
And just everything that's going on here feels really good.
Yeah.
So I think that Coastal and I both knew simultaneously we got to get here and be here. I am excited to engage in this community and a lot more.
And I would assume the leadership at Coastal sees this market, including Sarasota, Bradenton, all of that, the whole Gulf Coast over here. Do they see this as kind of the next Florida hotspot in terms of construction, development, growth for decades to come?
Absolutely. I mean, our headquarters is in Miami, and we have heart and soul in Miami and quite a bit of opportunity there as well, and as well as Fort Lauderdale and the Palm Beaches. But there's no doubt that this is a good wave that should continue, and it's just the right spot to be in Florida, above and beyond South Florida.
We're only talking about Coastal's only been building in the Tampa Bay area for 6-7 years, correct? Because Water Street was the first project. It's not a lot of time, really.
Yeah, since 2007.
And Coastal's been in business for a long, long time, decades.
2017, excuse me. Yeah, well over 30. Pushing on 35 years, yes. Yeah.
It's incredible the amount of towers and projects you have in a relatively short amount of time. But we were talking before we went live about the influx of capital into the Tampa Bay market and the developers from not only around the state but around the country coming here. It seems like Coastal's married those relationships long before this, and then everyone kind of ended up in Tampa. Is that kind of the way it all laid out?
Sure. There's a lot of trust with a lot of our existing clients that were already in other parts of the state that see the same things everybody else does. So whether it's American Land Ventures or Related or Two Roads or Coulter, there's just a good alignment there.
It's just beautiful work looking at Coastal's website. This is not all of this is Tampa. If you scroll up, Tyler, that's the Ritz Carlton on the right.
Yeah.
art and entertainment residences, right there on the left.
That's right.
Really beautiful projects. Let's run through them. I'm really excited to talk about all of these individually. Let's start with Water Street. So Coastal was involved and built the JW Marriott, Heron, and then the office tower, 1001 Water Street. With the JW Marriott, you had an interesting story about the Raptors during COVID. So the Toronto Raptors came here. What were they in town for? It was like a tournament?
Well, actually,
championship?
As a result of COVID, I think it was primarily revolved around the fact that they needed to leave Toronto and stay in the U.S. because they couldn't
play
go
in
back
Canada.
And forth, right?
Right.
And the bubble existed at Disney, and the NBA was focused on getting everybody localized. And so it promoted their ability to get in a spot and stay in a spot, practice and train and participate in the games that were isolated over at the Disney bubble there. So,
and how did that work? They were like, "Hey, here's a new hotel that's probably not going to open to the public."
Right. Well, originally that was opening as part of getting ready for the Super Bowl. Just luckily as well, we had the Tampa Bay Bucks in the Super Bowl here locally. But there was the NFL had planned on the headquarters being down at Water Street, combined with the existing Marriott that existed across the street. Those were tied together, so there was a significant amount of rooms and convention meeting space that was planned for. At the due to COVID, things slowed significantly, and a little bit of change up with the NFL coming out of the first year of COVID, if you remember. And so I think it made a lot of sense to attract the Raptors to locate in the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
They had the ballroom spaces that they converted into some practice facilities, and just made a lot of sense.
Put the chandeliers up and then took them right back out.
That's right. Get them
That's
out of
crazy.
the way.
They built basically an entire training facility in the hotel. I don't know if that's a common thing. I didn't know that, but that's fascinating. They did that.
I don't think it's common at all.
Yeah, probably
But
not.
it
That was probably a COVID thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, the JW's gorgeous. That location too, was that already owned by Venick and SPP before that project was conceptualized?
Well, I'm sure I'll miss some of the appropriate facts here, but as I understand it, Jeff Vinnick had been conglomerating much of that real estate for some time.
Right.
He's controlling the real estate in and around Amalie and making sure that that helps drive the product of not just the Lightning, but everything around it. And the partnership with Cascade and Strategic Property Partners promoted the influx of development opportunity and the master plan around it. We had the pleasure and the privilege, quite honestly, to work with SPP on their vision, and we were involved with the JW as well as the Heron, which is a 420-unit apartment twin tower. Originally, the Heron was going to be a condominium on the side closest to Garrison there, the 26-story tower, and the 21-story tower was an apartment. So you can see the two side by side, and also the 6-level garage that houses retail, including the Publix Greenwise at the base. We just love that tower and the architecture associated with the Heron. It's such a statement piece downtown. Simultaneously, we were building the 1001 Water Street office directly across the street, in addition to the Marriott that you can see there to the left of Amalie. So.
Yeah, because it was designed as a condo, does that make a difference in the size of the floor plans, the appliances?
Yes.
Yeah. So is one side of the tower nicer than the other?
I don't know that I would describe it as nicer. It certainly has a higher level product in the appliances and the floor plans and a bit of the cabinetry, and even the reception area downstairs is a little bit of a different level of fit and finish. But you know, we as we understand it, it's very well occupied, and I know the rent prices have been driven, you know, have gone up significantly since that was executed, and it's been good for the market. It's good for everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of those balconies are pushing 1,000-foot wraparound balconies that look out on the water there. So
just Google image it, because the architecture is really incredible. I've never seen it. Florida, typically South Florida for a long time, you've probably noticed this, has most of the intricate, cool architecture. Tampa really hasn't had a lot of that. Only recently in the last 5, 6, 8 years with the projects we're talking about today and some other ones, do you see this amazing architecture? Yeah, Google image Heron.
Screen is frozen.
Oh, shoot, is it? Well, that's not good. But yeah, the balconies are freaking huge. It's like you're getting something so significant when you rent there. Plus, the location is insane. I mean, you're right off the Riverwalk. You have a grocery store downstairs. You can walk to all the restaurants and
Well, you'll see. I mean, there's exposed board form finished concrete balcony dividers everywhere. That is neat in and of itself, and they articulate as you go up the building. And then additionally, there's monument, iconic elements such as the tree column that is extended out with that 6-story cantilever over the garage that's coming out towards Water Street there. And that's, I just think it's pretty neat architecture. And like you said, SPP and their entire team did a phenomenal job bringing in, globally recognized architects and design firms. You're seeing a lot more of that with Related as an example.
Right.
Architectonica is being used quite a bit. KPF was engaged there with Heron. So they are bringing in notorious designers.
We're blessed in a lot of ways to have. I mean, that architecture firm is worldwide. They build stuff in like Barcelona, right? All over the world. So to have them creating a space here is amazing, and it's really cool to see. In terms of cost, you might not know these exact numbers, but these buildings to me look so far beyond anything I've seen. Is the cost double what it would regularly be if it was just a basic shell apartment tower? Like, how do those numbers work? And the reason I ask the question is when you drive around in Water Street, there's a sense of, wow, this was significant to build. Like, the trees are already mature. The bricks, they didn't just pour concrete for the sidewalks. They're actually laid bricks, and the paneled wood look concrete on the Heron. I mean, there's details that you notice that indicate, wow, so they really put a lot of capital into just the look and the feel of these buildings.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it's not a market rate garden style walk up.
Right.
Obviously, those are all post tension concrete structures. You've got amenities and the rooftops there at the Heron with the pools and the fitness centers, and so the architecture in and of itself would be, I wouldn't say more expensive for what it is. I would say there's been an investment to ensure that the architecture is what it should be.
There was a high standard.
Standard. There was also a complete plan for a public realm discussion where walkability around that community was understood. They had, the whole plan was in place. It wasn't one-offs. And so to be involved with that, it's not market rate. Now, at the time it was procured, pre-COVID, and then there was a bit of a decline. And then we've seen, unfortunately, some escalation of cost in our industry over the last 2 to 3 years, probably in the range of 20 to 30%. In the market now, we're seeing a lot of things settle a little bit as demand is kind of settled in. And
we'll pause and kind of keep on these products because I do want to talk about COVID. That I know for construction, COVID was a very nerve-wracking time. We work with a builder in Sarasota on residential sales, and it was tough. From buying land was very tricky. Buyers were apprehensive and sellers wanted to offload product, which was good. If you had cash as a buyer, you could make some good deals. Right. But then construction was such an unknown factor. We were having to tell clients, hey, look, here's the cost, but then we're going to have to put an escalation clause in there too, because we know costs are rising. We don't even know we don't know when trusses are going to get in. We don't know when certain materials are going to be here and how much they'll cost when they're available. How did that affect, and I'm talking about a single family home, what was the effect on the macro level when you're talking about a building that, I'm assuming was hundreds of millions of dollars? All of these projects are very large. How did COVID affect the actual construction cost, and how did you work through that?
Well, you hit on a key point, the escalation factor, the unknown. Our business is typically driven off of, when we provide a guaranteed maximum price, we're providing certainty. We're providing a schedule, and we're providing a number that can be relied upon. All of a sudden, that uncertainty became escalation is a factor that's just going to be out there, and we'll deal with it as it happens, and I can't give you a guaranteed price. Well, if you can't get a guaranteed price, you can't drive your pro forma, you don't understand that end game, you're going to be much more hesitant to proceed, right? So we put in factors or goals to contain that to some level. then it's naturally driving up the base price. So all that was in function and form. I think beyond that, you also have concerns around actual material supply pipeline concerns, and that existed around smart chip technology. Anything that was driven off of smart chip technology or petroleum-based products or products that were coming out of China, quite honestly. So roofing materials, as an example, insulation, had significant delays. But when you're looking at a job like the Heron and you're saying, okay, a year to 18 months into that project, I need all my electrical gear or I need my generator. And there's a 24 to 25 month lead time that occurred after COVID on the electrical gear. So what does that do to the overall project schedule? Now, luckily, all of that has alleviated itself significantly in our current environment. We've seen that just settle, and become more and more certain. About 2 years ago, I would say concrete was suspect and hard to get a hold of consistently. We had issues with the gear. We had issues with emergency generators. We had issues with insulating products and roofing products, like I mentioned. And so we just took a higher level of planning and strategy and understanding, and then locking in some level of certainty around that so that the escalating factors didn't cause a concern with the job. So,
did you have developers push back on escalations immediately?
Yeah, absolutely, and they should. Quite honestly, they're looking for, a certain environment so they can build against their performance. So, our job was to try to regulate that and bring it home and provide some level of certainty. Luckily, we were able to do that in most cases, and it certainly has gotten a lot better.
Well, in a lot of ways, it's a miracle, or obviously the hard work everyone put in to get these projects even accomplished and built through COVID.
Yeah.
Some of the supply chain issues were unbelievable in the single-family market. I can't imagine on this scale. Has Coastal realized, and maybe this is a large construction industry thing in general, is there a thought now to say, hey, we're going to go in on a big warehouse or a piece of dirt, we're going to store some materials, whether it's concrete, drywall, trusses, whatever it is, to hedge, hey, an event like this comes up, cool, we've got extra supplies available. Is that on the radar?
I wouldn't say that we're doing that in terms of actually procuring material and storing it. I know many of our trade partners are, and those that, and there's one in particular in the market as an example, Power Design is based in St. Pete. They do a great job getting out in front of those types of concerns. The other thing that we do to try to mitigate that is we bring on partnerships early in design assist manner to help them identify where those concerns can be, maybe secure material earlier, try to meet those schedules that we've got that help minimize the risk associated with material not getting to the jobs if it needs to.
Yeah, I would imagine that was just a massive concern coming out of COVID was, okay, next time, if there is a next time, hopefully not, how do we work through that?
Yeah.
So having that on the radar makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And again, there's certain raw material that is always going to be a concern. I think the large fabricated concerns that are coming, through the global economy, there was a rat through the snake after COVID. Basically, things shut down, and as things ramped back up, it took a while to get back with the pace that was necessary to supply, production. And then certain markets are not active, not nearly as active as Florida is.
Right. I was going to bring that up.
Whether, Texas and Florida and certain areas of the Southeast or Mid-Atlantic are still doing well, other areas of the country are not necessarily growing at the same pace.
That's right. And in a strange way, just in terms of growth, it helped that factor.
Yeah.
Right. You had this massive influx of people, particularly from the West Coast, like you said, California, Oregon, Washington. You also had a lot of people from the Northeast coming down to Florida as well, specifically this area. Central Florida, South Florida received a lot. But Tampa's seen an incredible amount of growth. I want to say the number is 90,000 since 2010, an increase in residences, which is about a 25% increase in our population in less than 15 years, which is unprecedented for our area. And through COVID, a lot of that growth, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, would help with these projects from a developer's perspective.
Sure.
Because if the people aren't moving here and a developer is spending a lot of money on these projects and they don't have enough people to fill it up, that hurts the entire economy, right? That destroys their market, that destroys the construction business, realtors, all the real estate industry just falls out from under that. That growth is really the foundation, the support of really everything we're talking about. So in a strange way, the way all of the migration patterns worked out through COVID was actually in our favor because the growth was oriented towards us.
Right.
So we kind of threaded the needle a little bit in that sense. And it's amazing. Like I said, it's amazing this stuff even got built. And you drive to Water Street today and it's busy and people are spending money in the restaurants. And you have these residents that are incredibly satisfied with where they live. Everyone I talk to at Water Street loves it. There's frustration with prices, but that's a different issue. That's really a supply issue. We need more supply to house these people that are moving here. So 1001 Water Street, that office tower, architecture is incredible. How are we doing, Tyler? Is the screen share up? All good? Could you pull up 1001 Water Street? Such a beautiful office building. When was the last office building built in Tampa before that? It's probably when I was like a baby, like in the late 80s, early 90s. Right? I'm trying to think. Are you aware of the last office building built in Tampa?
It wouldn't surprise me if it was at the earliest, the early 90s.
Yeah, right? It's been a long time. Yeah. It's a gorgeous building. Yeah, pull that one up right there. Look how pretty that thing is. Yeah. Now, you were describing before you actually used two separate vendors. You have two different panes of window. On the north and south, you have this large, is it a 2-floor window?
You're right. So as you see the paneling there, the smaller singular panels, we were able, those are all precast, precast concrete with a nice articulating pattern in the precast exposed. And what we were able to do is identify some local trade contractors, both on the glazing front and the precast front. They both exist in St. Pete. We were able to pre-glaze those panels on the east and the west elevations to help reduce the schedule overall, dry in the building in a much quicker fashion, and really just help expedite completion of the work after it was dried in. And so that brought, some savings as well. And in addition to that, it just ended up being a very beautiful product. And the local partnership with West Tampa Glass and Stable, who did the precast, it was very nice to be able to monitor and verify the work being done at grade. In other words, the glazing of those panels was done in the yard over at Stable's yard in St. Pete, and it helped expedite that entire product and ended up being very, very good decision.
For Water Street specifically, how much of the prefabrication in terms of whether it's windows, these concrete casts on the exterior of the office building, all of it, how much of it was local businesses creating these?
Sure. Yeah, I think, what I've seen happen over the last 5 years is I've watched an incredible influx of skilled craftsmen and trade contractors into the market. But at the time, by example, I'm fairly certain our plumber that was there came out of South Florida initially. Outside of that, I know that drywall framing, the balance of the electrical work was done with local leadership and local labor. I would say it was probably a good 75 to 80% was local on that particular building. But we did have some influx of South Florida contractors that happen to now reside here, headquarter here, and have expanded their footprint into this market. So some of that was organic. Some of that was good partnerships that Coastal had with existing trade partners, just like other GCs in the market have had, to be fair. But it certainly, I can't say that a few of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection contractors have, I wouldn't say necessarily followed Coastal, but there's no doubt that they are here working with Coastal and wanted to be here working with Coastal. So we're proud of that. We're most proud that they're here permanently now.
I love that. So, I think that's amazing. It helps in so many ways for our economy. The reason it wasn't 100% built by locals because those jobs just never existed before. Water Street was such a defining project. No. Right. Yeah, it was such a defining project just in terms of the design and the construction that there probably weren't many jobs that required fabrication of these types of materials before. So it makes sense that it didn't exist. But the fact you got, call it 70, 75% local plus a lot of those guys and girls and businesses have moved here. That's awesome. That'll make it easier in the future to complete these other projects we'll be talking about.
They weren't just drops in the bucket. They're here to stay.
I love that. Yeah. I'm sure. Do you talk to any of them about Tampa since you're new to living here too? How do they like it?
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
And they're headquartered here. So I was with the fire protection contractor this morning actually talking about that.
So people have moved their entire trade business to Tampa.
If not headquartered, certainly their secondary prime market in the state of Florida. So they may still have a headquarters in South Florida, but Tampa is here to stay, and they have local leadership and people that live, work, and play here. So
it's fantastic. Yeah. Well, let's move on. I want to talk about. We'll talk about the Ritz. Okay, so that was developed by Related Group. First tower is complete, correct? You've already had some closings over there. You've delivered that back to, I guess, the developer, and that's being people are starting to live there. It's beautiful. It's very intricate, incredible design on the ground floor, and then you have the tower itself, which is the tallest tower on Bayshore, and another tower behind it, which will be even taller than the first. Plus, you have townhomes along the street, and then I believe a new park that is Coastal building that park under the expressway, or how's that panning out?
No, not right now, but we're actually housing our teams and trailers are parking underneath the Selman there, but I think we'll get out of the way and they'll get the park going in
the expressway. Will take that project on. Yep. That whole piece, that this whole block we're talking about, this
from Bay to Bay to Bayshore,
Bay to Bay to Bayshore, through McDill as well,
through McDill,
under the crosstown. It's going to be such a beautiful piece of waterfront property when it's completed. How now? Coastal traditionally has been a South Florida construction company, right? You're all over, but really South Florida heavy. Related is down there as well. When Related found this site in Tampa and they wanted to build the Ritz Carlton, was the talks immediately with Coastal, or how did that relationship transpire?
Yeah, I think that given some other significant work that we're doing with Related in other parts of the state, there is a good relationship. There is a trust-based relationship with the ownership of Coastal and of Related. We are here in the market, and they needed to be here, and it made sense, and the fit is good. There's certainly opportunities for us to continue to do better, and we are lining that up for our second tower that's going up, and we're excited about that. We're excited about the continued opportunity to take care of all the residents around the perimeter. I can say that in some cases, we just want to keep doing better and continue to support the surrounding community and protect the neighborhood and the neighbors in the area. But it's an icon there on Bayshore, and the amenities itself and the backdrop, the townhomes that run down the backside. There's 88 total units in the tower and 12 townhomes in the first phase, and we're at 6 townhomes in the second phase, but still 100 total units. So
it's amazing. It's really, really a cool project, and it's a statement piece on Bayshore Boulevard. It's very apparent. It's interesting in the design too, how it's almost like a wave, the glass running down at an angle. Let's talk too about the difference in jobs real quick, since you brought up the neighborhood. Obviously, when you're building in Water Street, you don't have a lot of neighbors to deal with, right? So it's easier in a sense to plan and have those logistic kind of contingencies, right, with traffic and roads and people and all that.
Sure.
The Ritz Carlton is a very dense site. I mean, you have people living in the immediate vicinity of those towers. Right. How has Coastal kind of figured out a way to mitigate the noise and the dust? It's impossible to remove 100% of those externalities. But how detail-oriented is Coastal in being a good neighbor for these projects?
Well, I can honestly say we have to be more and more and more. Being on Bayshore, there's a lot of wind, especially when we're up high. We need to make sure there's nothing coming off of those buildings, protecting our neighbors all the way around, from just water that sheets off of a deck with wind flow to anything else. So as we're going up with the second tower, we're actually protecting and netting the entire side of that building to ensure that nothing can get outbound of our property. proximity is very tight. So, in some cases we're, a foot or two off of an adjacent structure, and it's the top of the order every single day. It is a difficult logistics flow. So we have dedicated MOT that we've worked out with the city of Tampa to make sure that we're flowing in and around, not only avoiding and making sure that we're taking care of the existing residents, but now the new residents that are moving into Tower 1 that will automatically increase that traffic flow. So
that job only gets more complicated, right, as you move those people in.
Sure, of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you said more and more and more. Like it's truly never enough. You can always provide more protection, more mitigation, always be a better neighbor.
It's our responsibility to make sure we get that right. And we haven't been perfect. We need to do better, and we're going to continue to focus on that, take care of everybody around the perimeter.
Beautiful. Well, it's exciting that second tower is going up, and I see it will be completed at the end of 2025 next year.
Yes, sir. Yep, that's how we're tracking. And we're actually going up on the second tower right now and slightly ahead of schedule on the structure. So
that's fantastic. Well, let's move on to the Pendry.
Sure.
The Pendry is, in so many ways, that piece of real estate. Cursed is a bad word, but man, a lot of people have tried to take that on. Changes along the way. Trump Tower was proposed there. Pull up Trump Tower. Trump Tower, Tampa. That was proposed, I think, before the crash, like 05, 06. Real estate market turned. Project got thrown out. I think there was a lawsuit with Trump with the naming rights here in Tampa, something like that. And then it was another developer bought the land, right? It was supposed to be Riverwalk Tower. And now finally, someone has figured it out. The Pendry, two roads development. And now Coastal Construction is getting it done. Pull up that site. It's not working again. Jeez. The tower though itself, the Pendry, there's going to be a condominium component, a hotel component, and then you're going to have, I believe, along the Riverwalk, retail restaurant space, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's amazing. And then construction-wise, it's a tricky site. You're right on the river. It's muddy. You've got these massive areas where there's just gaps in land, and it's very porous. It's almost like you're building on top of a sponge. Talk to me about that initial foundation. That's a tough job there.
Well, the great thing is we've got phenomenal geotech engineering and structural engineering, DeSimone and others engaged who have looked at those anomalies that exist there and taken all that consideration. I think part of the history, which I can't speak to directly, but I think it's all about the investment that it takes to do it right and get in the ground, which is a significant investment. Very often we don't see that until that's completed.
Right.
We're about 6 weeks away from completing all of that deep foundation work.
Can we talk about that investment in terms of dollars?
Tens of millions.
just to get that thing to a point where you can build on top of it.
Yeah. There's been, the Two Roads has done it right, made sure it's done right. Again, the structural engineering and the geotech understands some of the anomalies you spoke of and the concerns there. And so, you have scenarios where there's 56-inch diameter drilled shaft caissons that are, well over 240 to 280 feet in the ground. That are bridging some of those anomalies and making sure that everything is very well stabilized, and it is. And so, we'll be moving towards sheet piling and protecting the perimeter here towards the beginning of July, end of June, and you'll see the structure starting to come out of the ground by the end of the year.
Going vertical by the end of the year.
Well, the pile cap foundation work is going to commence in July, and then you'll see the verticality definitely coming out of the ground by the end of this year.
Amazing. So a lot of the reason why that site wasn't built upon was the particular foundation and the investment it takes to get that site ready. That's a part of the story.
I would imagine that's at least part of it. I think the product that Two Roads is investing in and what's going to be involved there is a high-end luxury hospitality product. With a certain level of amenity, as you mentioned, some of the restaurants and the detail that's going to be there is going to be a beautiful thing for Riverwalk and the downtown community, and continuing to pull that in. Parking, there's a large parking garage that's half of that podium with the hotel, about the same elevation, and then the condominiums are above. And the amenities are phenomenal as well, both for the hotel and for the condominiums.
Beautiful.
So,
I can't wait to check that out.
yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting design too. There's almost like a separated, an arch type structure of concrete that goes around the building.
Yeah, an eyebrow.
An eyebrow. Yeah. Really, really interesting.
There's some neat
design.
screening and detailing down below with the podium.
I'm super excited about the brand too, Pendry.
Right.
I believe they're out of Beverly Hills. They have another hotel. Montage, yeah. Really, really cool for Tampa to have that. Also, too, to bring in the Edition and the Ritz Carlton. Some of these more high end brands are noticing Tampa, and the popularity is there. I believe the Ritz Carlton Tower 1 sold out before things went vertical. I mean, they had a reservation
Certainly
list,
close. And they're doing very well on Tower 2 right now.
It's amazing to see, and it's clear that the demand for a product like that, it's very evident with the sales. That's what people want. People are moving here from around the entire world, and they want luxury, beautiful places to live in. So I have no doubt that Pendry will also be successful. And then do you know what restaurant is going to be downstairs or what retail space is going on? Maybe you do know, but you can't say.
I can't say.
Dang it.
Yeah, maybe we'll follow back up with that one.
Okay. Well, we'll have you on for part
not at
2.
Liberty yet.
Are we back up in live, Tyler?
I know we'll be very happy about it.
Can everyone see that? I would assume so, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, look at this thing. These eyebrows are incredible. Really like something you would see in a Miami or a South Florida that we haven't seen here in Tampa. All these projects have that same story where you look at them and you realize, wow, that is out of place, but in a good way. It's out of place because it's beautiful and it's significant, and we haven't seen anything like that. I think that's why it's so exciting. Look at that freaking amenity level too. What is that, like the 8th floor, 10th floor?
Yeah, over the 10th, correct. And then there's another one at the top of the condominiums there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, there's the site. That'll be really cool too because it's directly on the Riverwalk.
Right.
So you have the Marriott Waterside. I don't know what they've renamed that, the one on the water. There's the JW, but the other one they've renamed it a few times. I think it's just called the Marriott Waterside now.
That's correct.
Marriott Water Street, something like that. But this one's cool because the Pendry is directly on the Riverwalk. So from that restaurant, from whatever retail, whatever is planned there, you'll be able to access the Riverwalk, which is huge. The Riverwalk is such a fantastic piece of our urban core. It's so popular. And now to have a project that is right on the Riverwalk with direct access is super exciting.
Yeah, we're excited about it. And we're keeping it open as we're building. We've got a canopy there to make sure we protect everybody. And that's covered right now to make sure as we're building, everybody's okay.
Yeah.
And so that's been a pretty significant investment. Keep it going.
What's the canopy like? I mean, how much are we talking about protection? I mean, that's
well, I mean, there shouldn't be anything falling on it.
Right.
Let's say it's really to make sure anybody that's in there is going to be safe.
Yeah.
Cyclists as well as pedestrians walking, running, and enjoying the river.
Before we move on to the next project, let's talk real quick about safety on this macro, this high construction, these buildings. Yeah. Man, I would imagine that's the most important thing you do is figure out how these hundreds of people working on this thing stay safe from ground up.
Yeah, every day. It's the number one thing that we do. Think about it's situational. It's checking in. It's assuring that we're checking in every day. It's making sure that we're asking the right questions as things change in phase, as we're jumping cranes, as we're manipulating material, as we're pulling out in an MOT traffic pattern and ensuring, which we have immediately adjacent to the Pendry on Ashley. We have one-way traffic there to protect that edge. And so, I can say that it's in the fabric of everything we do. And the mindset is questioning first, what's going on here today, here and now, and making sure that we don't become complacent. So that's a constant discussion with our teams and making sure that we're, challenging ourselves to check in.
And just being in a tropical environment too, the shift in weather.
Oh yeah.
I was in Channelside at a buddy of mine's office a few weeks ago, and this random storm came through. And they had guys up working on the AC. They had a crane and they were up on top working on the AC. And I thought, God dang, that came out of nowhere. like how does that company mitigate, and how do they have protections? Because in Florida, our weather changes so rapidly. And if you have guys hooked up and on the side of a building or on the top of a building, within minutes, that weather can shift.
Yeah.
I'm assuming those guys know the weather, like, hey, we got a storm coming in, lock it down.
We do. We're looking at wind. Sometimes the wind is significant even when it's not as bad on the ground level, obviously. And we're up 30, 40 stories, and a bit of wind tunnel movement that occurs in a downtown environment in between the towers. So that's one thing. Lightning coming in is certainly on our radar constantly, literally on our radar. So when we get within a 5 to 10 mile concern, we're shutting crews down.
Wow.
We have no choice. We're up on a deck with steel and the crane, obviously. And just,
it's not worth the risk ever.
It's not. And so we move quickly. Good news, bad news in Florida is it goes away in about an hour too.
Yeah,
so
real.
we're counting on our 3 o'clock thunder boomers coming in. And usually we're prepared to go back to work as they move through. Sometimes it cools us down,
Sometimes it's a half hour, hey, hiccup, take a break, cool off, no worries.
Yep.
Sometimes it's a hurricane, though.
Right.
Now, when you have a project going on, we're supposed to have a crazy hurricane season this year.
Yeah.
I'm sure Coastal's aware of that.
Yes, we are. Yeah. Well, by example, last year we had 2 significant storms in the area, right? One storm sucked the bay dry. The other one pushed water back up into it.
Kind of weird, right? Yeah.
And so all about that cyclonic action coming in where it comes into the coast. And we were aware, engaged, 72-hour watch, dropping cranes, moving things off the jobs, protecting the material for our clients. So we have the responsibility to protect the asset and get everybody out of Dodge and make sure that things are tightened up as best as possible. But if you have work in progress, like this particular site, there was some significant flooding there down at the north end of the site that came in a whiting and actually came into that intersection. That's a low point downtown. We are doing additional infrastructure that will go up and down Ashley and help clean that up. And then above and beyond that, there is a bit of a rise that comes up from the porte cochere to the slab on grade, pushing somewhere around 6 to 7 feet from that location. So there's an uptick in the elevation of that building compared to that low spot. But we also will be getting the water out of that intersection with additional infrastructure that's going into the street. So,
is there a company that helps facilitate moving those cranes, moving materials that are susceptible to tipping over or causing harm to people and property? Like, is there someone you call that handles that hurricane mitigation?
Ooh, wow, that's an interesting question. Actually, we do it with our trade contractors, with our partners on the job.
Right,
So
they want to protect their equipment.
we're responsible to either get it off site or lay it down, protect it. In cases like this where you have these drill rigs in place, those are the caissons that are going in. There's not much that can be done outside of laying down the crane. And actually, it's as safe as it can be at that point.
Right.
But if we have any, rigging or anything that can get moved off the top of a building, it's absolutely going to come down off the building.
Can you Google the scaffolding on the Floridan Hotel? Do you know that story? I think this was last year or the year before. They were redoing or doing some sort of fixing on the facade of the Floridan Hotel. And like literally the day after they put up all the scaffolding, the guys were up there taking it all down, like all 20 floors or whatever. And I thought, God dang, that probably cost them God knows what.
And frustrating.
But then I thought, man, you got to do it. Because what happens if we get hit and that shit flies around and damages other buildings and God forbid hurts someone? Like,
exactly.
You got to do it. You got to provide for that mitigation.
Yep.
And you guys have a lot of sites.
That's why if we have a storm warning, at minimum 5 days prior, we're moving.
Right.
Because we can't predict that rapid.
And they shift so frequently too.
Right.
So
and luckily we're all over the state, right? So we're looking at that from multiple perspectives, and we have dedicated safety teams and safety supervision in the state that's very focused on it, making sure we're getting it right.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of compliance that comes along with that. I would assume the government has regulations regarding all of that.
As a matter of fact, during Water Street, there were passes that had to be secured to even have access at some point, should it become an evacuation zone, which it did in certain times downtown. So,
Interesting.
We had certain authorized individuals that could come back in, evaluate damage, evaluate the concern, also stay to the very end. So we're making sure everything's getting gone.
And when you mentioned like laying down equipment, this red crane, right? This thing's massive.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that gets laid down and tipped over.
It could if we have
Or the
space
front
to do so.
comes down, correct?
Yeah, the boom itself.
The boom
correct.
itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, I've always wondered that during hurricanes. I see all this equipment and all this growth and construction happening. And I thought, God, what do they do with all that? So they just basically lock the site down for however long you need to.
We remove what we can, lock the site down, protect the asset, and do everything we
And
can
pray.
up to the moment of we got to get off the site.
Right.
Yeah, and
Wow.
get everybody out of there.
Let's go up the river to
Yeah.
the arts and entertainment residences.
Yeah, great.
Tyler, not working at all? Okay, Tyler's working on it, so we can't pull up a picture. But this is the 31-story tower right next to the Strass Center. Insane location, right on the river, right in the arts and culture district. You've got Curtis Hickson Park. You've got a ton of restaurants, retail, all within, I mean, literally within hundreds of feet. You have basically everything you could ever want. You even have the urban little grocery, Duckweed, across Curtis Hickson. Insane location. That location was created by the city, right? That was Bob Buckhorn who reconfigured that street grid there. How early along in the process does Coastal come in with whether it's getting rough numbers to the developer, hey, this is what we're kind of ballparking for this project? Like, how early in the process are you guys involved?
I would say on average, it's at least a year prior to commencement of the work, maybe longer.
Maybe
depending
longer.
on the project. Certainly longer in some cases. In this case, I think it was about a year prior. And that allowed for early pricing, programmatic review, informing design, supporting feedback around selection, not only of material, but of processes or systems, let's say, from glass railing to exterior cladding systems to the structure itself, to the coordination of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection. That's done early. And actually, in this case, there was quite a bit to be done with regard to waterproofing below grade associated with the deep foundation and a lot of the work around that perimeter on the site. And so, and luckily, I think during this time, it was a great time for procurement because the market had not yet escalated in the most recent uptick. And our client, American Land Ventures, this was the third of 3 opportunities that we've done with them in the recent past. One of those is the Evo project, the apartment out in St. Pete. Another one is a beautiful apartment down in Boynton Beach on the Intercoastal. And I really, this job is just it's incredible. The views that the residents will have up and down the Hillsborough, looking back towards Raymond James and looking out towards the bay, and even looking across to St. Pete, is I just don't know of any other view corridor like that. And the amenity that exists on that 10-story garage is a beautiful pool deck that's looking back towards the east right now, and that orientation is looking from west to east. And you've got 334 apartment units, some really nice balconies, and there's also a very nice amenity up at the top with the gym and cold plunge and sauna and a members lounge, or an apartment members lounge up there at the top of the house on 31.
And you're close to completion on this, correct?
Yeah, we'll turn over. The first turnover will bring us up through level 11 in the amenity, including the garage and the co-working space and the retail that's down at the base. That'll turn over here in the next couple of weeks at the end of May. And then the balance of the job will turn over in mid-July.
And turnover, what does that term exactly mean?
Occupants physically moving in.
Got it.
They're actually moving into the building.
And so you go to the developer and say, hey, we've completed this portion. You can go ahead and sign leases. I'm sure they already have leases signed, but move people in.
It's a little bit deeper than that. It's the approval with the city of Tampa with a certificate of occupancy relative to that area. All the fire and life safety is signed off. All of the egress concerns are signed off. The landscape, hardscape, and traffic patterns are completed around the base of the building. And so when that's done, that's this first turnover and then the units up through level 31, the 334 units are final fit and finish, quality controlled, final punch, final acceptance by the client. So they have a good 15 floors right now that they've accepted.
Got it.
That are actually ready for move-in.
Is that Coastal's responsibility, or I guess in general for the industry? Is that the GC's responsibility for the certificate of occupancy with the city, the fire marshal, all of those checks, or is that the developer that does that?
That is our responsibility.
That's your responsibility.
Yeah.
So full service in that, when you say turnover, literally you are turning over a completed move-in ready product.
Sure.
Got
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned another term, dry in. Is
Right.
that spackling? Like what is dry in?
Well, when I refer to that, I'm suggesting that the building envelope is complete, meaning that we're surrounded with the exterior cladding and the skin of the building is dried in. That allows for us to complete our interior work, begin to move air in the space, climatize the space, physically have the building dried in.
Interesting.
And that's, that would include obviously the roof and the balance of the building being complete in terms of the envelope.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, we think in those terms.
Yeah. Well, I'm just
that's a key milestone for us in the progress of a job because it allows for a lot of the interior work to get done. Detailed millwork needs to get climatized.
But we're talking work. We're not talking like plumbing. That's all done previous to that.
The distribution of the plumbing should be chasing the structure going up the building. So the
As you're going.
primary distribution verticality of the plumbing and the mechanical work and the electrical work is chasing that structure, and then we're drying in as we're going up.
Got it.
And closing the building up, and then all the in-wall rough in, the detailing of what occurs in our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection inside the walls, and we're completing those interior finishes after that.
Cabinetry, et cetera. All of those details.
Flooring, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, next we have the art house. How we doing, Ty? Okay, good. Yeah, art house is a really, really pretty condominium
It is.
in St. Petersburg.
gorgeous.
My cousin bought a place there. He's
Oh,
really excited about
Nice, yeah.
it. Fantastic location too.
Yeah.
Right downtown St. Pete.
it's-
St. Petersburg, really the downtown. I'm sure you've spent some time there. It's awesome.
It really
I mean,
is.
the amount of ground floor things to do is lacking in Tampa, and it's apparent that St. Pete has it. You go over there, and it really is a different vibe.
Yeah, it is. And Coulter has really tapped into it.
Totally.
I mean, just what the investment that Coulter has made in that community and the continuance of that it's pretty exciting. We're really enjoying working with them, and their vision for the area is pretty special.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a 42-story tower art house. It took 348 cement trucks pouring concrete for 24 hours for the building's foundation. Now, why is that special to that site? That just had to be done for that particular area?
Yeah, I think it's only special in as much that it takes a very focused, concerted effort to get it right and maintain it and have that continuous flow and do it overnight and make sure it gets done properly. And our team did that and with Coulter and the engineers. So
I'm laughing because I'm just thinking, like, logistically,
yeah,
how the hell is
Right.
that? I mean, you have to coordinate with what? The city,
Yes.
traffic, and
Absolutely.
I mean, the
Absolutely.
probably the police department, everything.
oh sure, and as an example, I know we had one truck that had a flat tire and we had to figure out how to get it moved out very quickly because those trucks behind it need to get the concrete on the ground and keep that flow going, right? And so little things like that are just little bumps in the road, literally, that we have to attack. Our client was there with us. Our engineering team was there with us. And it's just a continual foundation, continuation of that work has to keep going. And as you can tell, so that existing structure and the adjacency to it just as important, right? I mean, we're literally inches away, especially there on this long end, and protecting the existing structure and the neighbor, doing it right, maintaining the flow of traffic around the entire perimeter. I mean, this is a fairly populated nightlife area on a consistent basis on Central and First Ave. And so we are in the heart of St. Petersburg.
Now, when you build literally inches away from another building.
Mm-hmm.
Is the other owner there with his arms crossed, like watching you, or how does that relationship work? It's trust in the contractor that they're not going to obviously cause any damage to the existing structure, but man, how much care is taken in that regard?
Significant from both the developer that we're working for as well as Coastal, making sure that we're protecting the deep foundation, protecting the adjacent, structure itself, assuring that nothing is coming off our building onto their building,
right?
And then additionally, just communicating and over communicating again and again.
Wow.
So, I think that it's going well, and we got to stay very attentive to that.
It's a beautiful building. Funny enough, that building on the left, that was actually the highest building in St. Petersburg. Now it's dwarfed. When you drive over the Skyway of the Howard Franklin, you look at the St. Petersburg skyline, and it's like, wow, a lot has changed there in the last maybe 5 years or so. Tampa's skyline has changed significantly, but we don't have those statement towers yet. We will. There's a few on the radar, but St. Petersburg has a lot more skyline defining buildings. Art House is one of them. It's really exciting to see that thing go up. I believe you're on the parking structure portion of it currently.
We're rotating level 25 today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
And how many floors is this? 42.
Right.
That is crazy. 42 floors in St. Pete. I would have never thought growing up here. Man.
Yeah.
Wow. I think the tallest building in Tampa has 42 floors. I don't believe this is taller though.
Yeah.
In terms of like actual roof level height. So back to the cement trucks. Is the reason why you want that constant flow? I mean, if you have a portion of the cement that dries, then you have a portion that's wet. It screws up that foundation.
Right.
The strength of that foundation.
That's right. So, we can get into more detail there, but they have to be continuous and keep that going. So they're curing at the same rate and the same pile cap, and all those deep foundations are.
How does rain affect that?
It could affect us, especially if it was a long-term torrential downpour.
Right.
It doesn't hurt us if it's episodic and moves through.
Well, concrete's wet.
It's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that is formed. So if it was earth formed and some of that, maneuvers around, we would stop. But in this case, we had good weather. We planned it and confirmed that we had good weather. And when we started, we didn't have any concerns or issues.
Yeah, because a 24-hour period, a lot of it is the roll of the dice, right? I mean, you could pick a day in those 24 hours and you set everything up and okay.
But if we had to push it, we would have. But we were checking and also keeping our people there,
Right.
24 hours for anybody, you become ineffective after a bit and unsafe. So we were rotating teammates and supervision, obviously, and keeping everybody informed.
And what are you doing, Sean? Just biting your nails, hoping it all goes well?
Yeah, well, I luckily, I have incredible people that I have the pleasure of working with.
Yeah.
And that I'm just supremely confident around not only their ownership, but their vision, their follow through. If anything, in our industry, we are communicators. We have to be. There's so much transfer of knowledge and information that you have to do it very purposefully and drive to do that. And I'm just really proud of the type of people and the people that we have working with us.
There's so many moving pieces, so many different talents coming to the table to build something like Art House or any of these projects. And then at the base of it, you have your client, right? The developer.
Mm-hmm. And with Coulter in particular, they're a legacy builder developer that understands not only the product they're providing, but the vision and the original intent. And so their culture in particular is one of verify and re-verify and confirm and validate. And that works really well with what we do in terms of a quality control approach and complete ownership. By example, that first floor, we've walked every single unit with that owner in a pre-frame, pre-rock mentality to absolutely confirm and validate layout, detailing, exterior cladding, exterior systems.
Wow.
They're
very
very much
dedicated
involved.
to their product
Absolutely.
and the vision of what they want to build.
Yes.
And then it's your job to execute.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
pressure's on.
Pressure's on. Yeah.
And then lastly too, Aqua at West Shore Yacht Club. Can we
Yep.
pull that map up? Just because in the beginning I was confused describing it. That whole south of Gandy West Shore development is massive. Hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of units to that area.
Yeah.
You do have some shopping and some retail space, which is great. So Aqua at West Shore. How we doing, Ty? All right, no worries. So describe again exactly where that is. There's these 3 towers that are planned with townhouses in the middle and parking structures all on that finger that goes out into Tampa Bay.
That's actually a different project. That is Marina Point that you're describing. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's out on that finger directly due south of the Gandy. And BTI is moving forward with expanding those 2 towers. And the garage and townhomes that run in between it. Our Aqua project is in the West Shore Yacht Club, down at the end of the West Shore Yacht Club, inside of the gates. And that project is moving forward as we speak. The deep foundation work is progressing, and we'll be going vertical here in about 6 weeks as well.
So it's 2 completely different areas than what I was describing.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's just the amount of development down south of Gandy is really incredible.
It really is.
Along the water there.
Right.
And then you also have DeBartolo's property north of Gandy, right off West Shore, which is a massive single family, I believe, gated community.
Right.
So you're going to have a ton of new residences over there, which will spur some more commercial development, which I'm very excited for. Get some more restaurants, shopping, retail, stuff like that.
Yeah.
How far along is that project at West Shore Yacht Club? You mentioned that's commenced in the foundation stage.
It has, yes. The first tower, there's actually 3 that sit together on a podium, but this first tower of 3, that's it right there.
Pretty little thing.
Yeah, and what you're not seeing is that. So that'll be the continuation of the second and the third tower. The first one is the furthest south. So we're working south to north.
A map.
Yeah, and then you come out the backside of West Shore Yacht Club over there to the north, and we're progressing the deep foundations there on the furthest north tower, and then we'll be going vertical here in about, as I said, about 6 weeks.
Beautiful.
There's only 77 residences in the tower. Just our client here is phenomenal. Also, we're just blessed to have good people to work for and work with, and their vision for this entire area is pretty wonderful. And working again with all the residents of the yacht club and making sure that we're taking care of the surrounding perimeter and not affecting those guys that are already living there. But right now, they have a sales center just down West Shore, and sales are progressing nicely there also.
That's fantastic. I'm noticing a theme with these developers that you're partnering with to build these projects. It seems like all of them are very intentional in their design and their products and what they want to build. Is there a difference in the developer in Tampa versus other markets you've worked in?
Well, most of them are long-term hold owners that are investing in the property to hold it. I wouldn't say there's a difference there between others in Tampa necessarily, but our clientele has vision. They're not typically a one-off discussion. They're investing in the market, they're investing in the area, and they're investing in that property, and they're selling condominiums, but they're also holding on to their asset and their piece of what they've got there. By example, Coulter is not leaving St. Pete and their continued investment in that market. Neither will the owner at Aqua. So let's see here. You're down towards the West Shore Yacht Club, which is down a little further, I think.
So Gandy, you can see the bridge.
Yep.
Marina Point.
Marina Point is right there, and that's where.
I see the site.
That small peninsula, right?
Yep.
You expand that back again, you might be able to see the first tower that's constructed. Yes. So up at the top there, where the marina is in the far corner, immediately adjacent to the Gandy, just south of it, there's the first tower on the far east end, and the next 2 will progress out to the west. including a garage in between them.
Did you have to screenshot your phone and then airdrop it to your computer? Jeez.
Good job.
Yeah, good work. Yeah, so the site for Aqua is down here, correct? On that large piece of land south of Sand Surf Company.
That's correct. Right. You can You can see that plot with the S-curve road immediately adjacent to it. That's the West Shore.
This area is fantastic. You're going to be, I mean, if you're a boater, this is the place to be for sure.
Yeah, definitely immediate access.
Have you been to Salt Shack, the restaurant?
I have.
It's a great spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so awesome you're living in Tampa now and getting to work in these projects and do what you do and interact with these amazing developers that have a long-term vision for our community here. I love that about the growth that's happening, because the last thing anyone wants is crappy growth, right? We don't want an increase in traffic and busyness and dust and dirt, all to build projects that are only exclusively just to make someone money.
Right.
That's not what this is at all. I mean, these people are very dedicated and intentional in their designs and in their work. And it's so apparent when you see these completed buildings. Like, walk in Water Street, go drive on the Bayshore and look at the Ritz Carlton and the design on that ground floor, how it just complements and cascades like right onto the sidewalk and on Bayshore Boulevard, right into the water. It's so natural in the way it flows. Super, super exciting to have these developers here with these projects, and then Coastal. I mean, the dedication you guys have in your story, and it's amazing.
Well, and we're nothing without our people, and most of our folks are here, been here, love Tampa, love the market, like building in this area. They're proud of the projects they're building, and they're the best at what we do. And so I'm just privileged to be around them and enjoying the journey.
100%. And then lastly, Sean, luxury home division.
Yeah.
Interesting that Coastal Construction would have a luxury homes division. I guess interesting to me because homes that Coastal builds typically haven't existed in Tampa. The Derek Jeter house was like the first house that everyone thought was this incredibly big home, and it was so defining for Tampa. It was built 15 or so years ago, maybe like 2010-ish was, I believe, when it was constructed. But now you have a couple Coastal Construction luxury homes division homes being built on Davis Islands, an incredible modern one right on the water. There was another lot I saw a Coastal sign on. I would assume with all of the development happening, with the decades of growth we're going to experience, and these amazing brands like Pendry, the Ritz Carlton, there's going to be other amazing brands coming here to Tampa. There's going to be a market for these luxury homes. It's really cool that Coastal's kind of planting those seeds now, just like they did with Water Street all those years ago. I think it'll be extremely popular. Is Coastal Luxury Homes Division something you oversee?
No, not directly. We have that grew out of our residential business that actually is, again, the roots of Coastal, dating back to our time at the Ocean Reef Club in the Keys. And the custom nature, the high quality, the building directly for a homeowner in a custom fashion. I would say, these are homes that are well beyond, let's say, 20, 30 million and above. And so they're estate homes, of which is led by one of our dedicated leaders that is part of the Murphy family. And the reference is all by direct reference and relationship to come and build those homes for these owners. So we don't reveal who they are, obviously. These are private residences and personal in nature. And so to that end, I just think it's at the heart of what we've transferred into what we do in the large commercial structures that we build that have grown into high quality focus, QA/QC focus day one. And certainly the lessons learned that we have with these luxury homes and these large complex jobs in coastal environments, we apply to everything else that we do. So.
I obviously saw the Coastal signs going up at Water Street a few years ago, and then everything we've talked about today. I live on Davis Islands, so going for a walk with my wife and baby, I saw a Coastal sign on a lot, and it said Coastal Homes, but it was the same logo, and I thought, interesting, they have a home division. And then I saw a construction trailer on a single-family home site, and I thought, that's going to be significant. You don't see a construction trailer on a single family home site unless someone's building something really significant and really, really cool. So I look forward to seeing what all
Had
that
some deep
turns out to be.
foundations, I'm pretty sure. You had
Oh
some,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's some serious site work going on there. But there again, this porous environment. Davis Islands is a 100-year-old man-made island. I'm sure you've got old ceramic broken tiles and glass under there. You got to get through to the foundation. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what those homes turn out to be, because they will be defining, you know, in architecture and in space. Yeah. So exciting stuff. Well, Sean, listen, this was great. Yeah. Thanks for the conversation.
Enjoyed being with you, Garrett.
Awesome information. Great to meet you. If people want to follow along Coastal, does Coastal have like social media?
Yeah.
Website, Tyler, what's the name of the website so people can follow along? I think it's Coastal Construction is the company, but coastalconstruction.com. Fantastic.
Yeah, we have some other links that we'll provide as well.
Follow along, everyone. Coastal Construction's got it going on. All right, Sean, thanks again.
Thank you.
All righty. See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Yes,
Thank you guys for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like it. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, give us a comment, give us some feedback. We want to know how we're doing. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.